what we have coming up is Mississippi Grain Producer Indemnity Act.
The Indemnity Act and the Licensing Act till we get the rest of our committee members that wanted to be here for that upstairs. And let's go to one of the others.
Which one you want to go to first?
Any of the others, like we can do honey if you want to do that.
Okay, let's skip and go to Senate Bill 2007, the honey revised definition for purpose of labeling requirements enforced by the Department of Agriculture. And I'm going to let my vice chairman explain that bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That bill has been requested by the Farm Bureau and some of the honey bee producers across the state, the honey producers across the state. And what it's aimed at doing is creating the definition, getting it in the statute, and cleaning up a little bit of language in there. You'll see whenever you go to lines 13, it identifies what honey is. Shall mean a sweet, syrupy substance produced by honeybees from the nectar of plants, including honeydew, which the bees collect, transform, deposit, dehydrate, and store, ripen, and matured in the honeycombs themselves. So that's the definition that's coming out there. It can be fluid, viscous, and partly or entirely crystallized. You know, true honey does crystallize at some point, depending on the sugars that are within it. May not contain any additional food ingredients or food additives. This is the definition that's been proposed for honey itself. Now, what you're going to see within the bill, there's some additional language in there. When you move down to lines 32, you're going to see the word adulterated or artificial honey. Believe it or not, this does exist. It's any honey that has a sweetener added to it. So if you took 1 part honey and you added 3 parts of high fructose corn syrup to it, then you now have an adulterated product. And this is identifying the true definition of that right here. What you'll see is the sweetener has been added to the honey as to increase its bulk or weight, reduce its quality or strength, or make it appear to be of better or greater value than it is, and it shall be deemed an adulterated or artificial honey. Moving down a little bit further, you'll see that for the food consisting of this adulterated product in there, all ingredients shall be placed in descending order with predominance by weight. So if you've got 1 part honey and 3 parts corn syrup, you're going to see corn syrup, honey, anything else they added to it. Otherwise, it would be the other way. If you had 3 parts honey, 1 part corn syrup, that's what's going to be in that adulterated product. The next one is truly where this bill came from. It's called value added honey products. You can take pure honey, you can add vanilla to it, and according to the Department of Ag right now, that is an adulterated product. This is actually showing where a natural product being added to it, substance added to the honey itself, shall be considered value added honey product. And what we're talking about, if you've ever been in the grocery store or some boutique store and you've seen vanilla honey, that's where they take honey, they put a vanilla bean in there, and they make it vanilla honey. That's what you've got right here. It's not changing the honey itself, it's added the value to it. So this bill aims to provide where that label shall have vanilla honey, cinnamon honey, chocolate honey, whatever it may be, in the title, so people are not misled as to what the value of that product is. Lastly, you'll see lab-grown honey. It's out there, folks. Any product outside the definition of honey within this statute shall not be labeled as such. So the aim of this is to clean up that language, get it like it's supposed to be, provide our producers out there the option to have a value-added product to further label the adulterated products if they're out there, and do what we can to keep that market clean for the consumer. I would entertain any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Childs-Knowles.
I think Senator Jordan.
Oh, excuse me, Senator Jordan.
Thank you. I just want to know if pure honey will still have that title on it, other with all these alternate ones. If you really go in a place and ask for pure honey, 100% honey, then you can find it.
Yes, sir. We're not taking
Not
away
all
that.
in that. It's just
Honey is honey under our definition, it's straight honey. But if it's been adulterated or it has had a value added product, it's got to have that labeling on it. And that's the intent of the product.
But the products you mentioned, are they already out there?
Yes, sir, they are out there. They're around. If you look, you'll see some value added products out there. You'll also see some products that have corn syrup added to it or any other sweetener added to make additional volume.
I didn't know that.
Senator Chazanow?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this thing on? I wanted to ask, last year we had a bill that dealt with the manufacture of mead, which is a honey product. Is that going to be affected in any way by this?
I see no reason why you would have a conflict, Chairwoman. If you take mead, they're using a true honey. We just defining what honey is.
Okay, I just didn't want us to have some unintended consequences. I'm all in favor of what you're saying, but that does, because it's a new product in Mississippi, and that's why I was interested if this would have affected in any way.
Senator Chazanow, if you see any concerns, I'll be happy to work with you between now and
I'm sure
then.
Chairman McMahon will be happy to talk to you if it feels like, because that's in his district.
Any
Thank
other,
you.
any other questions? Hear a motion?
Conversation is best.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Go to the next one. Would you like to go to 2029?
Whatever you want to do now. We've got some more. We've got some.
All right, we're going to go back and go to the Mississippi Grain Producer Indemnity Act. This bill is being put in place because of the situation that we've had with Express Grain and how they messed over our farmers over there and the whole community, as a matter of fact. It's going to be called in section 1, the naming of the bill, Mississippi Grain Producer Indemnity Act. Number 2, section 2 states the legislative purpose that the act is intended to provide protection and funds for the losses by grain producers in the event of a failure of a grain handler. Section 3, it says that the section contains various definitions. Some highlights include the definition of the grain, the board that we're going to create, and failure. The definition of a failure is an inability to financially satisfy a claimant in accordance with the applicable statute or regulation or contract at the time limits provided therein. Section 4 will create a board governing the fund. It will also have the ex officio Commissioner of Insurance, Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce, and the state treasurer. Voting members, 3 members appointed by the governor who are grain producers participating in the program from each of the state Supreme Court districts, and 2 members appointed by the lieutenant governor who are participating in the program. The board shall have the following powers: to provide oversight of the Mississippi Grain Indemnity Fund, to approve any award of a claim from the indemnity fund, to pay all necessary expenses attributable to the operation of the Mississippi Grain Indemnity Fund, to approve all claimants' attorney fees and claims against the fund, to employ on a full-time or part-time basis a qualified staff attorney and such other staff as it may deem necessary to carry out the purposes of this act, and to contract with 1 or more reputable insurance consulting firms as may be necessary. It will also assess premiums prescribed in this act to be paid by grain producers participating in the Grain Indemnity Fund and to collect and deposit such assessments. It will make investments of the available funds in the indemnity fund as authorized by law. It will submit the board's budget request for the initial year of operation and for the appropriation of such funds as may be required for the commencement of its activities, and to make a compensation payments to claimants for financial loss up to a maximum amount of $5 million in the aggregate as more specifically provided in this act. It will subrogate all rights of the claimant, who shall assign all rights, title, and interest in any judgment to the board. The board shall have subrogation rights against a third party for amounts paid out of the fund or out of any plan of reinsurance. To initiate any action, it may deem necessary to compel the grain dealer or warehouseman against whom an award claim arose to repay the grain indemnity fund. To initiate any action, it may deem necessary to compel the claimant whose claim arose due to a failure to participate in any legal proceeding in relation to the claim, and to do all things necessary to carry out the intent and purpose of this act. The board may contract with the Department of Insurance to administer and enforce the provisions of this act, and the department may be reimbursed for necessary expense from the 3% money set aside under the Section 5 of this act. Section 5 will create the special fund for money deposited by producers. The rate of assessments is 2%, 0.2% of market price to be collected in similar manners as a promotional board's assessment. So if soybeans are bringing $10, it will be like 2 cents for every bushel if beans are bringing around $10. The section allows for reinsurance to be purchased in any amount that is sufficient to cover the probable maximum losses of producers. Producers not wishing to participate must notify the board by March the 1st that they are not participating. It allows for the state to reimburse the program for up to $5 million if there's a need before the fund reaches $20 million. After the fund has reached $20 million, the state will no longer assist. This section also authorizes a fund to operate in a revolving manner. Section 6 sets out the procedures for producers to make a claim on the fund, specifically sets out the failure means and an inability to financially satisfy a claimant in accordance with applicable statute or regulation or contract within the time limits provided therein. It also states the market losses are not a failure. Section 6 also, the producers will have 90 days from failure to make a claim. Within 30 days of the board's approval of a claim, compensation will be dispersed. Compensation will be based on the availability of the funds. Section 7 authorizes the board to promulgate the rules and regulations. Section 8 makes the bond of grain warehouses payable to the fund. Section 9 makes the bond of grain dealers payable to the fund. Section 10 is the effective date of this. This was talked about for some time with farmers, Farm Bureau. They voted on it. They wanted to come up with this program. I think it's a good thing. Any questions? Senator Hill?
Is there any other state that is using this model?
They are. There are. Illinois, Arkansas.
Let me clarify. Are you talking about the reinsurance part of it? I can't off the top of my head, Senator, say if there's another state that has the reinsurance. The goal was to be sure that you're talking about the 5 million that we've got.
Oh, okay.
Was to use the model from basically the wind pool, where the state guarantees a certain amount that's in the fund. We're not buying that. We're just stating that we're guaranteeing up to 5 million to be there for the farmers.
And so Farm Bureau endorses this particular way of doing this?
Well, I will tell you this, that no one in general has endorsed any certain language. They've endorsed the product. They've endorsed the voluntary side of it. Everybody's come together and worked through a lot of it. Everybody's got a little bit of tweak on it. House is going to have some tweaks. We're going to have some tweaks. The commissioner's going to have some tweaks. Everybody's going to have a few tweaks, but overall the intent is to create the fund, make it voluntary, and to provide some type of backing for our farmers out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Chairman. I took that.
No, that's fine. Senator Jordan.
Yes, yeah. Mr. Chairman, what about the resources that these farmers lost last year? I know in my neck of the woods, people were suing the grain over houses and so forth. How
Well,
will they be made whole for the money they have lost?
it's up to the courts, Senator Jordan. I went to the governor. I went to everybody trying to get some kind of help for the farmers that had the loss. You know, the Department of Ag issued this company the license. I'm not blaming the commissioner. He didn't know that there was some fraudulent going on their audits. He didn't have any idea that was going on. And the farmers and the whole community is going to have to pay for this, and hopefully it will work out in the courts. But this won't help them right now, but this could help in the future.
Okay. I just wanted they lost quite a bit. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. And the local banks are going to lose quite a bit. Everybody loses.
Tell me about it.
Any other questions? Everybody, make a motion for that. Everybody approve? Say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That bill will go in. The next bill we have is Senate Bill 2029. This is an old bill that was brought to our attention to try to get rid of. It's just a antiquated, obsolete bill. And we're just wanting to try to get rid of it. It's not being used. It's from the, I don't know, from the 20s, 30s. And we're just trying to get rid of this bill. It's no good anymore. So we're just creating a law to get rid of a law. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. The next bill we have is Senate Bill 2071. It's the pecan harvesting law bill that keeps coming to the float up in the water. This, yeah, speaking of pecans, here we go. This is not a bill for people picking up pecans off the street that's coming off of somebody landowner's tree. This is the bill where people were going in on the landowner's land, backing up to a big tote bag of pecans and stealing them and putting them in their truck and going. If you've priced pecans lately, they were stealing a lot of money. Is that correct, Senator Seymour? Would you like to say anything else about this bill?
Mr. Chairman, the only other thing that the bill does is set the dates a month earlier and a month later as far as the harvesting time, because the new cultivars they come in earlier and some stay later. And in reality, the section that 69-33-9, when this all come about years ago, it was deemed a misdemeanor because pecans was not that much of a value. So now we're at a point to where a baseball cap is $5 worth of pecans. So in reality, if somebody goes out in the field and steals a pickup truck, well, you can conceivably take $7,000-8,000 worth of pecans from a man's field, and the worst that he could ever be charged with was a misdemeanor. So for $100 fine, that would be pretty good business. So that's why we're just trying to bring it forth to where the statute, the amount of crime is paid for.
Any other questions?
Hey, maybe.
Yes, sir, Senator Jordan.
For clarification, you know what I mean? They did it biblical dates, at least left stuff in the field for somebody, maybe they got that idea.
I'm sorry.
During biblical days, they left at least the fields and they left stuff for people to get on their own. Maybe that's the concept that they have. It's not funny, but that,
Outside
Excuse
the days that is distinguished as their harvesting period, you can get with the farmer and pick them up. I will say this, in where everybody's talking about on right of ways and all, counties in the old days, to keep a landlocked piece of property for you to get access, normally through somebody's orchard would be the easiest and best way. Well, if you go through somebody's field and he loses revenue, you're going to pay for it. So the compromise had been over the years is just that during the period of harvest for the pecans, you don't go out, picking up the guy's, crop.
Any other questions? I hear a motion.
Constitution to pass.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Any opposed? That will go next then. Thank you. All right, the next bill we have coming up is Senate Bill 2077, the Mississippi Farms and Families Program. I'm going to yield to Senator Whaley to explain this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We have section 1 establishes that it would be known as the Mississippi Farm and Family Program. What this would do would be an establishment to distribute incentive dollars to farmers markets or local food retailers throughout the state that use the SNAP benefits. This would be a 1-to-1 match. So if you went to a farmer's market, if you were to buy $1 worth of tomatoes, you would actually have $2 worth of tomatoes to be incentive. So this is a program to incentivize healthy eating, supporting local fresh fruits and vegetables and suppliers throughout the state. That's the basic definition of the bill.
I'm all for it. I think it's, everybody eats so unhealthy these days. I think it's a great, yes, Senator.
I
Chadwick.
just wanted to add my support for this bill because of the opportunity to help our farmers as well as to benefit the health of the families that would perhaps be incentivized to buy healthier foods. And I think it'll have a real positive effect in the Delta where often we have food deserts. So at the time, I'd like to make a motion.
Amen. Yes, ma'am.
Title sufficient to pass is my motion.
Thank you. Everybody in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Good deal. All right, last but not least, the last bill we have, Senate Bill 2479, Committee Sub. It deals with Mississippi Grain Warehouse and Grain Dealers License Law, revised and combined into a grain handler license. 2479, first section is naming of the bill. Second section is updating the language to reflect the combination of the license. Section 3 updates definitions to include grain handler and surety bond. Section 4 updates the commissioner's authority. Section 5 says that no person shall operate a grain warehouse without over 500,000 bushels of grain without having a license from the USDA. It further states that a person operating a grain warehouse between 50,000 and 500,000 can operate with a USDA license or a state license. All those under 50,000 do not need a license. Section 6 updates the law to reflect combinations of the license and increases the application fee to 500 from 150. Section 7 provides that a license fee increases from 100 to 250. Section 8 through 15 is updating the law to reflect the combination of the license. Section 16 updates the bonding amounts to reflect the changes in who is licensed by the state. It also adds authority for the commissioner to require the posting of additional bond if he questions the ability to pay. Section 17 is updating the law to reflect the combination of the license. Section 18 is updating the law to reflect the combination of the license. And on line 395, we inserted a slow pay reporting mechanism. The producer would notify the commissioner of a slow pay event and requires the commissioner to investigate and to report the producer the findings of the investigation within 10 days. 19 through 21 is updating the law to reflect the combination of the license. Section 22 is updating the law to reflect the combination of the license. On line 469, we changed the auditing requirements to specify that audits get sent directly to the commissioner. Sections 23 through 35 is updating the law to reflect the combination of the license. Section 36 increases the fines for violations of the licensure law. And section 37 repeals old sections of law to reflect the combination of the license. And section 38 is the effective date. Any questions? See none, do I hear a motion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Committee sub, yes, sorry. Yes. All right, do I hear something? Rise report.